We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome into the latest NBA Lockdown podcast. I am Doug Kezirian. We're taping this on Monday, April 6th, national championship game in college hoops tonight. We have one NBA game that's actually a makeup of a snow game. But we're going to recap a bunch of action going on from this past weekend coming up. Amin Elhassan is going to join me momentarily. We're also going to have Royce Young, who covers the Oklahoma City Thunder for ESPN, join us. Also, Tony Cartagena from ESPN 980 in Cleveland to talk about the Cavs and their impressive home win streak, 18 straight games, and most recently yesterday over the Chicago Bulls. And Ethan Strauss, who covers the Thunder for ESPN. Obviously, the Thunder in danger of missing the playoffs, so we'll talk a little Westbrook, a little Harden, and a little Scott Brooks as well. But right now we're talking with Amin on Paul George's comeback. Great to see PG-13 back in uniform 8 months after breaking his leg in two places with Team USA out in Las Vegas. Returned limited action, but scored a decent amount of points. Also got a W for the Pacers, which are fighting for a playoff spot. And he said the fans gave him the big lift that he needed.
It was everything that I expected. You know, it's one of the reasons why I enjoyed signing back and being a part of this organization for the future. Just because of these fans. You know, the welcome in back into the game was probably the greatest moment that I've had.
All right, Amin, 13 points in 15 minutes. What's your reaction to Paul George's return?
Well, first of all, I like how he says, "Oh, the fans are one of the reasons why I re-signed." Like, no, bro, the max deal with the 5th year is why you re-signed. Come on now. He's acting like, I love when they say stuff like that, like as if, oh, you know, if I had signed in, I don't know, if I had signed in Dallas, the fans wouldn't have cheered when I came back from my injury. They would have gone, about time. They would put their fists on their hips like, Paul, you've been taking it easy on us, haven't you? Come on, man. They do that in every city. But more to the point of your question, it was very cool to see for him to come back, especially when that injury happened. It looked so gruesome. You know, it's so graphic. But, again, at the same time, I hate to be, you know, Debbie Downer on the feel-good story, but if you talk to medical people, a broken bone is much, I don't want to say easier to come back from, but has a higher success rate of coming back and being just fine than ligament damage. Because once the bone heals,
you can say that. It's easier. They all say it.
Yeah. You know, so bone healing, and you're pretty much good as new, whereas ligament damage is always something that's not the same. And either they grab some stuff from one knee or one other part of your body to repair it or whatever it is. But those kind of issues are a lot more dangerous. But yet, because we can't really see what a torn ACL looks like other than when the knee buckles, but you can see when a dude's bone is sticking through the skin, we have a feeling like, oh, that one's way worse. Wow, man, that was really negative for me. Huh? I just basically said, Paul George, your injury wasn't that bad. And by the way, anyone would have cheered for you coming back. Big whoop. Want to fight about it?
I agree with the second part. I will say it was bad, dude. He broke his leg in two places. It's 8 months away. And I'm not saying he's just walking. He's playing in the NBA. So let's move this forward. Look, this guy was an MVP candidate a year ago. The Pacers were the 1 seed a year ago. Right now they're fighting for a playoff spot. Paul George, not the same Paul George, but he's at least back. What are the chances the Pacers sneak into the playoffs here?
I think they've got a decent chance, and the decency of their chance rests upon two facts. Number one, they've got an easier schedule remaining than either the Celtics or the Nets, even though the Nets are in 7 right now. They're still not out of the woods. Number two, the injuries that Miami is dealing with, I mean, it's near catastrophic now for them. They've gotten to the point where Shabazz Napier is out for the year. I mean, it's unbelievable how many bodies they've lost, literally since the trade deadline, since All-Star break, I should say. Since All-Star break, one by one, it's almost like a Final Destination movie. One by one, every single member of the Miami Heat is getting picked off, and yet they're still in the conversation. But if you're the Pacers, there's some element of you control your own destiny. If you win most of these games down the stretch, you give yourself a very strong chance of making the playoffs because your competitors have tougher schedules and because your other competitor, the Miami Heat, they're just not healthy.
Yeah, I'm with you. If I were to predict how this all unfolds, I'd say the Heat are done. I think the Pacers stink, but I think they get in because I think the Nets stink more. I would go Pacers and Celtics get into the playoffs. I believe in Brad Stevens. I'm going with the coaches. I'm just saying that's what I'm taking. I'm taking the better coaches.
Yeah, it's funny, and I agree with you. Brad Stevens has done a masterful job, but there's something about, down the stretch, these games are extremely – the playoffs have started, essentially, for these 4 teams. I don't know if a young team like Boston with – literally, who are we talking about with playoff experience on that roster? Brandon Bass, and that might be it. Avery Bradley, I guess, to a lesser extent. I don't know if they can make the winning plays down the stretch. Now, I know they had that in Toronto the other night, but that was kind of a fluke. That was Isaiah Thomas lost the ball, and it fell in Marcus Smart's hands.
Yeah, but they were up 10 in the fourth. Which makes me to your point. That's my point. But they at least came and brought the noise on the road without Kyle Lowry, of course. But still, that was an impressive showing.
Absolutely. But, they dropped one in Milwaukee that they needed the night before at home. And they could have easily dropped that one in Toronto. And again, kudos to them. They pull out the win. But I'm just saying, if you're asking me from here on out who I expect to execute and get things done, I don't know if I can put my money on the young team that's never done it before, with people who've never done it before, because it is pressure-packed and it's a different kind of level of basketball from what any of them are accustomed to playing to. And a great example of this was last year, actually in the playoffs, the Raptors and the Nets. And I think we could all agree that the Raptors were the better team last season, throughout the season, and even on paper. But when it came down to it, in a Game 7, you got all those guys like Joe Johnson and Darren Williams and all these guys who, I guess been there before. It's tough, man. When you get that, first of all, having that attention to detail and executing and knowing you have to do it is one thing. The other thing is just the pressure of the situation. I'm not saying that, that makes you a loser because you're wilted in that situation, but there's a first time for everybody. And that was the Raptors' first time, and they crumbled. And I kind of see the Celtics down the stretch here because they don't have that easy of a schedule. I think, the same fate belies them. By the way, it's the same thing when we talk about the Pelicans out west. Why do I keep saying the Thunder are going to make it and the Pelicans aren't? Part of that is because the Pelicans haven't been there before. And having to be perfect down the stretch with a tough schedule, that's hard.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not exactly running the bank on the Celtics, but I wasn't exactly on the other teams either. Look, you're right. The NBA has proven it's a rite of passage league. Let's say Paul George plays himself back into shape, so to speak. The Pacers get to the playoffs. Can they make any noise if they match up with the Hawks? It'd be a rematch of last year's 1-8 match, of course, flip-flopped.
Yeah, I would take the Hawks, but I do think the Pacers present a specific type of problem for them, namely their incredible size and the way they can attack the offensive glass. We saw that happen in Miami last night, yesterday, where there's just a point where the Pacers are just like, what, our offense has missed a shot and then grab an offensive rebound and go right back up with it. And when we talk about Scola and Hibbert and David West, this speaks directly to Atlanta's Achilles heel, which is defensive rebounding. They're not a very good defensive rebounding team. They're a good initial defensive action, like we're going to stop your initial point of attack, but then once it turns into that game of volleyball around the rim, they're in a little bit of trouble.
All right, we'll table that discussion. A lot of speculation. We'll see how it'll unfold, but it'll certainly be an exciting week and a half for the rest of the regular season. Now, whoever does end up in the 7th seed will have to face Cleveland and somehow find a way to win in Cleveland. Now, the Cavs have won 18 straight at home. For more on that, let's welcome in Tony Cartagena of ESPN 980 in Cleveland. Cavaliers got a little hairy at the end, but get it done once again yesterday. 18 straight home wins. This one coming against the Chicago Bulls, an Eastern Conference foe. Joakim Noah thinks they can handle the Cavaliers despite Cleveland's dominance, particularly at home. Tony, what do you make of everything that was said by both the Bulls and Cavs yesterday?
I really think Joakim Noah just hates the city of Cleveland for whatever reason, going back to 2010 where he said, it's cool if you're playing basketball, but there's nothing else to do there. And Cleveland fans obviously didn't take too kindly to that disrespect to their city. But yeah, Joakim Noah just doesn't like the Cavaliers, doesn't like Cleveland, and it's weird for that statement to be said, all those years ago. And one of the impact players for the Cavs this year is J.R. Smith, who comes in, and he was a guy that had some off-the-court issues in New York, and comes in and says he's playing better in Cleveland because the only things for him to do are play basketball and play video games in his house. So I think it works both ways when you kind of just look at the personalities that the Cavs have in there. But I think what was said yesterday was that what everyone expects. Going into the season, I don't think many people thought it would possibly be the Atlanta Hawks, Cavaliers 1-2. I think most people thought it would be the Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers and possibly the Eastern Conference Finals. But the way it's looking now, the Bulls would have to come to Cleveland and not have home court advantage. And like you said, 18 in a row. My favorite stat of the Cavs so far this season is that Timofey Mozgov has never lost in Cleveland. He was traded to the Cavaliers on January 8th. They lost their last home game January 7th when the Houston Rockets came to town. And I think when you look at that, 18 in a row, and it's not even their longest. In 2009, they were 39-2 at home, which they play great at the Q, and it's such an electric arena. I think they pack 21,000 in there on a nightly basis, and it will be interesting. I don't know if the Bulls really want or really can handle going to Cleveland in a 7-game series, but the Bulls, the Cavs would have to go to Chicago and win as well, where they haven't played that great this year either.
Tony, I think the Cavs' magic number is, actually they've already accounted. They've locked up the 2 seed, correct?
Yes, the two seed is there. I think the magic number for the division now is 2 after beating the Bulls yesterday, and the Cavs play on Wednesday, and I think the Bulls have a Monday game, so they could wrap that up Wednesday in Milwaukee.
All right. So what's the focus for the team here in the last 5 games?
Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask LeBron James, his focus is the team isn't tired. The team is waiting to get to the playoffs, and it doesn't matter where they are. They just want to get in, and obviously they're in. They're going to be the number 2 seed. If you ask David Blatt, he wanted earlier to lobby for position. He wanted to make sure they were in the right spot. Trying to figure out the perfect matchup, and he also wants to give his guys rest going into the postseason. So I think we're going to see a happy medium of both. I don't know if you're a Cavaliers fan and you want to see LeBron James, Kevin Love, and Kyrie on the court, that you should buy tickets to the last week of the season in Cleveland necessarily, because I doubt that they're all going to play at the same time. But when you look at the rotations that they've been going with, David Blatt wants to work on some, getting his 6 man there, getting Tristan Thompson involved, getting Iman Shumpert more minutes. So I think you're going to see a lot of that as well. As for the rest thing, like I said, LeBron said after a game last week the Cavs weren't tired. It was when they only beat Philly by 2 points. And David Blatt said, we're a tired team. We traveled all these miles. We've played 15 games in 29 days. And LeBron James goes, we're not tired. So there's a little back and forth there. But it'll be a pretty smooth sailing 5 games until they get to the postseason.
Do you guys ever go back, like when one guy says one thing and the other guy completely contradicts him? Do you guys ever go back to the first guy and say, your guy keeps contradicting you?
It's funny because if you ask David Blatt to comment on a comment, he's not going to do it. He's going to say, get the further details from LeBron or Kyrie or someone. But then when you go back and you guys know how it works, you transcribe all the notes and you're reading through these quotes and you're just like, the head coaches, they're on a completely different page, whether it was even about the play calling thing last week or about the injuries and the rest. There's just been so many times this year where you've seen different statements and different contradictions between mainly the head 2 guys and Blatt and James. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I know right now a lot of people are freaking out about the head coach and the star player don't get along. But, sometimes you need people in your camp and people on your team to check one another, and checks and balances there, where I feel like David Blatt and LeBron have a good relationship that they probably keep close to themselves. From the outside looking in, people think, it's LeBron James' team 100%, and albeit he does have a lot to do with the decision making and with the play calling, obviously. But I think most players in the league, especially superstars and people who bring the ball up the floor as much as LeBron does, I think they all have that amount of power. I compare it to a quarterback in being able to go up and check the defense and call a different play or audible out of a certain set. It's just how the NBA works. So I think that LeBron's playoff experience will teach David Blatt a lot when April 15th hits and the regular season is over.
A couple of housekeeping items. Yeah, no, it definitely is funny. A couple of housekeeping items. They beat Philly by 1, not 2. No big deal. But I have a question. How can they have locked up the 2 seed but not the division? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, when you look at the standings, when they hit that magic number of 2 after the Milwaukee game, Chicago can't catch them, which I guess that makes sense if mathematically they can still catch them, and maybe I jumped the gun a little bit on that one, but with Chicago being right behind them, I think they'll have the 2 seed 100% when they lock up the division, but from like all intents and purposes, I mean, I feel like they're locked into that 2 seed.
Gotcha. All right, so on a recent Bill Simmons podcast, Brian Windhorst said about that Hawks game when they were down close to 20 points, erased it and lost, but LeBron left that game very confident because Atlanta had a couple days off and Cleveland was playing back-to-back, and Atlanta ran a bunch of sets that Cleveland hadn't seen, so they treated it like a playoff game where the Cavs were just going through the motions of the regular season. So he was saying that the Cavs, particularly LeBron, very confident come playoff time. What's your take right now of the Cavs' mindset entering this postseason? You just talked about the regular season and, resting players and all that, and LeBron and Blatt. But what's this team really saying behind closed doors about their chances to represent the Eastern Conference?
I would 100% agree with Wendy on that when they have the confidence level that it's 100% there. When you talk to some of these guys, a guy like a J.R. Smith, not to keep going back to him, but where he used to play, people thought he was all about his numbers and everything, and now when you talk to him, he's very open on being all about, he calls it the gold ball. Kevin Love has referred to it as the Larry O'Brien trophy, and just what they are actually striving for. And I think this Cavaliers team, after all the trades were made and after the trade deadline passed, I think these guys got on the same page and realized that they could be a part of something very special, something bigger than all of themselves. And to me, this team has a ton of confidence because I think that the regular season for them has just been such a grind because they've been only looking forward to the postseason. I think they knew that they were going to be in the playoffs. And when you have LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, you're going to make the playoffs. And they knew that they were going to be there. So when you look at some of the postseason or the regular season performances, you don't want to make excuses for it, but you can somewhat understand what was going on. You can somewhat understand why a Sunday home game against the Philadelphia 76ers, they didn't really get up for that game, and I think some of the players will attest to that. I think that this is a confident ball club because they know once the postseason hits and LeBron James goes playoff mode activated and does his rituals as he goes through the postseason, and the team continues what they've been calling the process all season long. I think the process finally comes to fruition as soon as the regular season ends, and this team locks into that, what they've been referring to as their championship mindset, that knowing the regular season doesn't really matter for them. They are 100% locked in to the NBA final, or the first round, and then hopefully for them for the NBA final.
All right, that is awesome stuff. Really excited. I'm looking forward to the NBA playoffs about a little less than 2 weeks away. And by the way, I looked it up. Timofey Mozgov, as a member of Denver, did win in Cleveland. So you're right. Mozgov has yet to lose, regardless of jersey, in Cleveland.
Yes, I forgot about that win with Denver. That's a great call. So Mozgov just owned the city of Cleveland this season.
Yeah, exactly.
19-0 apparently since when he lands in that city.
All right. Really appreciate the time, Tony. Thanks for sharing the insight, and I'm sure we'll check back with you later in the season.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, that's Tony Cartagena of ESPN 980 in Cleveland. Coming up next, Kentucky, not the only seemingly invincible team to go down this weekend. Have we found an Achilles heel for the Warriors, or are just the Spurs the team to beat out west? We'll get into that in 1 minute.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Back on the NBA Lockdown podcast, rejoined by Amin Elhassan. I'm Doug Kezirian. We're going to welcome in Ethan Strauss momentarily, who covers the Warriors for ESPN. But the Warriors get smacked in San Antonio. First team to beat the Warriors twice this season are the defending champs. Here's Steve Kerr. Now, keep in mind, Golden State was playing back-to-back games, and the Spurs had just been beaten in Golden State convincingly, so had a little payback on their mind. But let's hear what Steve Kerr had to say after the double-digit loss.
I reminded them that, there's another level to get to. It's one thing to win a lot of games, and it's another thing to win, against a championship team. And so we've got to play better. We've got to learn from this. It's not the worst thing in the world to happen to us. A little slap in the face, like, oh yeah, we can get better. We got to keep improving.
All right, so Steve Kerr trying to find a glass half full approach there, but let's welcome in Ethan Strauss, who was at the game. Hey, Spurs are the defending champs. They're healthy now. Hard to beat them in a 7-game series. We know Golden State has home court advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs, but what did you make of this game yesterday?
Man, I wish you'd cut that sound for when he got prickly, when somebody asked him if he should be concerned. You rarely see prickly Steve Kerr with the media. What I made from that game is that, yes, it was on the back-to-back, on the end of the back-to-back, and teams are allowed to have an off day or two, but Kawhi Leonard presents the Warriors with some problems. The combination specifically of Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, they have the guys to throw like Golden State's perimeter guys, so they will have to adjust if this comes down to a playoff series, and Klay Thompson and Harrison Barnes will have to perform a lot better.
Either, what's funny watching that game, and admittedly I caught it late because I was getting off a plane, but there were two things that jumped out. One was the intensity level was just, they wasn't even close. The Warriors were kind of going through the motions, and the Spurs were playing like it was Game 7 of the finals. The other thing was, it was funny to see the Spurs do to Golden State what Golden State does to everybody else, with guys moving and those shooters gravitating towards the corner. It was kind of funny watching them come down in transition and find multiple guys on the perimeter. And I'm looking at my TV screen and say, how could you leave Danny Green wide open in transition? Which is usually the thing that we yell about teams trying to guard Steph Curry.
Yeah, I completely agree. And man, it felt like Danny Green had 3 of those trailer threes. Maybe it was even 4. And there was an intensity gap. There certainly was. I don't think that Draymond Green is completely back yet and completely with the rhythm of play after he missed a few games with shin inflammation. So he wasn't completely on point, and they might have just been a little ragged on this road trip. So there was a gap between the teams. This game doesn't mean that the Spurs are clearly better than the Warriors, but it does mean that they present them with some problems, and some concerning problems if there is a playoff series between the two.
Is there a chance that this is like the best thing that ever happened to the Warriors? Because Steve Kerr was alluding to that.
There's a chance they can learn from it. There certainly is. Kerr said, he said that they learned the most they had from any loss they had from the Spurs one early in the season, and that made them focus on which things in their offense they should improve on, and fewer turnovers and whatnot. So I do believe that you can have a good loss, especially in the regular season where these games don't matter all that much. So I think it's possible. I do.
But it is a house of horrors. They've now lost 32 straight in the regular season in San Antonio. I mean, that is insane. They haven't won there since the 90s.
Yeah, but isn't part of that they've just been a horrible, terrible, awful, stinky franchise for years and years and years? I mean, I don't think there's anything specific about San Antonio home court there. It's just we're looking at numbers where the Spurs have been a historically great franchise, and the Warriors, up until a couple of years ago, have been a historically abysmal franchise. So I don't read anything into that other than it's tough to win in San Antonio. It's a great crowd.
Okay.
Is there any chance that they're playing possum?
Who's Ponson? When did they check him into the game? I don't know. Who? But no. I don't think they're playing Possum. I don't.
You don't think that? No, I'm not saying obviously they want to win the game, but isn't there any chance that the game gets that they don't throw all the cards on the table so that the next time they play these guys, I mean, at least a bit. Because, again, that energy gap was just shocking. And to me, every Warriors game features that one stretch where
Hold on. I mean, was it really that shocking? If you've watched them, they barely beat the Suns at home. They barely beat the Lakers at home a couple weeks ago. This team, now, Ethan, please chime in, but this team's like it's going through the motions a little bit. They were on back-to-backs, and San Antonio had been waxed in Golden State the last time they faced each other. They're looking for payback.
Here's the thing. Because this is what I was saying, to clarify. That every Warriors game features that spurt where they say, you know what? We're not going to let you get into your offense anymore. We're not going to let you score. We're not going to let you get into your offense. You want to run a pick and roll? No, you're not. We're going to send you away from the pick. You want to run a flare screen? He's not coming off that screen. He's getting rerouted. He's getting diverted. Every game features that spurt where they basically flip that switch and say, okay, we're going to do this now, regardless of whether they end up winning or losing. Because I saw them do it in Boston and win, and I saw them do it in Brooklyn the next night and lose. And I didn't see that at all. I saw them just kind of like, I guess this one's out of hand. And that was it.
I didn't see that. I saw them do that in the third quarter at the beginning, but the Spurs just kept making shots. And that happens sometimes. I thought they opened the third quarter playing the defense they wanted to play, and the Spurs made tough shots, tough long 2-point shots anyway. And then you had that little run from Steph Curry where he scored 13 points in 2 minutes. Then they threw Kawhi Leonard on Curry, and the Warriors didn't quite function offensively. So I thought they had that spurt, and the Spurs were just good enough where it didn't matter.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm in the camp that's hoping the Spurs end up in the 6 or 7 spot so we can see this matchup in the conference finals. I really think it's these two and maybe the Clippers is the only teams that can represent the Western Conference.
The Clippers? Exclamation point, question mark.
I said maybe the Clippers. Chris Paul is going to switch. They get Jamal Crawford back. Look, I think it's a 2-horse race, but if you have to think of other teams, I think the Clippers are next in line more than the Rockets, Mavericks, or any of the other Portland. I think the Clippers are the only ones that pose a threat to those two. But again, I'm maintaining it's a 2-horse race, and I'd love to see this Western Conference Finals matchup.
I think he's right, I mean. I don't know. How are you reacting that way? The Clippers are good.
The Clippers are good. I don't know if I would put them as the maybe. My maybe would be Houston because Dwight Howard's back. And because, I don't think they're better than either of those two teams.
Are you basing that
Dwight Howard's back. Jaleel Okafor is more of an offensive game than Dwight Howard.
Are you basing this off Houston's recent history of playoff success? Is that what this is based on?
No, it's based off Golden State's rich history of playoff success.
That's right, I haven't
Hashtag hate hard.
No, I can see your perspective on it, but we don't totally know what Houston is right now, and they've kind of given the Spurs some problems. As crazy as it sounds, like Houston could be San Antonio.
They always give the Spurs problems. That's what it's a round robin. Like they give the Spurs problems, the Spurs give the Mavs problems. The Mavs give Blazers problems. The Blazers the Blazers give Clippers problems. The Clippers get problems with the Grizzlies. Like it's a big circle.
I think right now the Mavs give themselves problems. I think that's how that's going.
Yeah.
I think Rondo's giving them plenty of problems, too. All right. Hey, Ethan, we appreciate the time. That's Ethan Strauss. Check him out on Twitter and follow him throughout the NBA regular season and, of course, the postseason, which expects to be a long, lengthy Warriors run. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
This time we're welcoming Royce Young from True Hoop and also covers the Oklahoma City Thunder for ESPN and ESPN.com. All right, Royce, big game on ABC yesterday. Harden and Westbrook, former teammates, the NBA's top 2 scorers and fellow MVP candidates going at it. And Houston pretty much led this one wire to wire, although the Thunder tied it at 100 with a couple of minutes to go. And then James Harden just flexed his muscles, and I imagine caused Sam Presti to revisit ghosts of NBA trades past. But what's so Thunder here? We're in serious danger of seeing them miss the playoffs. What are they saying after this loss about the possibility of this presumed foregone conclusion not coming to fruition?
Yeah, this is 5 out of 6 they've lost now, Doug. I mean, they've they've fallen on hard times. And the thing that's really holding them back is they can't stop anybody. And for everything that's been good about the Enes Kanter trade for Oklahoma City, for everything that he's done to help kind of supplement Russell Westbrook in the pick and roll, especially with Serge Ibaka and Kevin Durant being out, I mean, the numbers don't lie at this point. And the Thunder are a bad defensive team when he's on the floor. And Scott Brooks has been forced to try to kind of mix and match and find some lineups that work. Yesterday against the Rockets, he found a lineup that was somewhat workable, going with one big man at a time, playing basically 4 guards along with Kanter. But it also didn't help that Steven Adams was in foul trouble, picked up his 4th foul 12 seconds into the 3rd quarter, and then fouled out after only playing 15 minutes. So, the Thunder just can't stop anybody. And, they've been a really good offensive team even without Kevin Durant, which has been impressive. But they don't have the firepower to outscore people consistently, at least, especially good teams. And that's kind of been the case lately. The games that they've lost have been to mostly good teams. They beat the teams that they should, for the most part, but they can't beat anybody good just because they can't stop them.
The defense part, I have to imagine that's got at least something to do with playing Enes Kanter a lot of minutes.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, like I said, the numbers don't lie with Enes Kanter. I think David Locke, who does play-by-play for the Jazz Radio, has some interesting numbers on Twitter. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but basically his on-off court numbers in Utah and in Oklahoma City are almost identical, which is kind of striking. But the Jazz were a lot better team with him on the bench defensively, and so are the Thunder at this point. So, but here's the thing about it. I mean, is you got to play him. I mean, the Thunder don't have any other options. If you take him off the floor, then where do you produce any kind of offense? And that's been the impressive thing about the Thunder over the last 2 months is, they're top 3 in the NBA right now in offensive efficiency since February 1st, which is incredible because Kevin Durant's only played 5 games in that span. But all that's well and good, and they've won a lot of games. They beat some teams, but they're beating everybody that they should. They just can't beat anybody good, and that's what's put their playoff hopes in jeopardy. I mean, they're only a half game up with the Pelicans right now, and they're tied in the loss column without the tiebreaker. And they got San Antonio coming to town tomorrow night, so things are in a tough spot for Oklahoma City.
So I was going to move this forward, but I want to real quick. Is this an effort issue? Because James Harden seems to be have corrected his defense based on all the internet memes from a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's an effort issue. Is he just lost? Is Scott Brooks not telling him where to go? What's going on with Kanter? I don't get it.
I think it's a personnel issue, honestly. The Thunder are playing a lot of young big men. Lately, they've been without, one of the best shot blockers in the entire NBA. Serge Ibaka is historically, he's covered up so many of their blemishes. The Thunder have never been a good perimeter team. They close out aggressively. They try to blitz pick and rolls. And all that stuff works okay. You can play an aggressive defensive scheme knowing that you've got a guy back there as a safety net to clean up around the rim. And they don't have that right now. Against the Mavericks last week, they gave up 72 points in the paint. And it was the same story in the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals where Ibaka was out. It was a parade to the rim for the Spurs. And so they missed Ibaka, but then they're also playing Kanter, who's obviously a defensive liability. He's only 22 years old. They're having to play rookie Mitch McGary a lot because Nick Collison's been out with an ankle sprain. So, a lot of their coverages, the Thunder have very straightforward pick-and-roll coverages, but the communication, that's kind of the word that everybody keeps bringing up in the Thunder locker room. And you could see it yesterday. Russell Westbrook, he's not a great defender, but he's an average defensive point guard. And, what happens to him a lot, and this is what happened when Harden was when he was guarding Harden, is a guy will come up to set a ball screen on Westbrook, and the right coverage won't get called out. So Westbrook's turning his head, and as soon as he turns his head, that's when Harden attacks. And Westbrook's out of position. The defense has collapsed. So, Mitch McGary's running up there, and he's trying to cycle through all the defensive coverages. What do I call out? What is this push? Is this weak? Is this red? Is this blue? And he doesn't know what to call out, and it just kind of messes everything up on the fly.
Not to mention the guys who don't call anything out. They just sit there and watch their guy get crushed by a screen. Hey, well, real quick, I do want to talk about that last play of the game. Again, it's not. I hate. The Scott Brooks kind of weekly crucifixion happens now every time they have any kind of end of game play. But what were they trying to get out of that?
That's a great question. Honestly, I went into the locker room expecting a better answer than what I got. Basically from what Scott Brooks, it seemed to me like Brooks was kind of trying to fall on the sword for Russell Westbrook. To me, a lot of what has been the issue in these type of situations is that Westbrook deviates from the plan, goes and gets the ball himself, and the play that they had set up is blown up immediately just because Westbrook wanted it. And that's happened in the past, and I thought that was the situation again here. But it seems to me that what the Thunder expected the Rockets to do was to take the foul. And if you watch the replay, Corey Brewer reaches in. He even looks at the referee kind of like, hey, I'm taking the foul here. And Westbrook tried to anticipate that, and so he tried to get a shot off. But the problem that I had with that is it seems like that was the Thunder's plan. Now, their advanced scouting probably said the Rockets foul up 3, so they probably felt really confident about what they were doing. But at the same time, they put the onus on the referee to make the call. And since that didn't happen, Westbrook tried to kind of sneak in and try to get a 3-point shot off, draw 3 free throws. But, Brooks said that they had other actions designed. And, I kind of thought, okay, most likely Anthony Morrow was to be involved in that, who had hit 6 of 8 from 3 in the game. He's shooting almost 60% from 3 over the last 2 months. He's taking the ball out. So I thought more than likely this is a give to Westbrook, back to Morrow. They're going to try to get him a shot. But Morrow in the locker room, I asked him about it, and he just said, my job was just take the ball out. That's all I was focused on, get a good pass to Westbrook. So I was like, man, if they weren't involving Morrow in this, then I don't know what they were.
Wow. That is bizarre, but not surprising. I'm a big I'm not a big fan of Scott Brooks. I'm a big guy in that camp of something needs to be changed. He needs to get better or some coaching change. But that's a conversation for another day. I will say in Phoenix earlier this year, Westbrook did get the 3 foul shots, right, if I'm not mistaken, forced overtime?
Yeah, and it's happened multiple times. He got it against the Pelicans, too, the game where Anthony Davis hit that double-clutch buzzer beater. Westbrook went to the line to tie it up because he drew a foul on a 3. So, it's kind of the type of thing that Westbrook's – and if I think back right, I think the game in the playoffs last year against the Grizzlies – no, it was against the Clippers. It was the one Chris Paul fouled him on it, and Westbrook hit all 3 free throws when Durant was sitting back behind the basket with his back turned. So, it's something Westbrook's pulled off in the past, but you can't expect that.
Why wouldn't they just admit we thought they were going to foul? And that's what that explanation to me is a lot smarter and saner than here's the play. Westbrook catch from 35 and then just let it go. That's dumb. That play, if that was them trying to get 3 points out of that, that's dumb. But if the explanation is we thought they were going to foul, our scouting report showed that they foul in that situation. We were trying to draw that foul. That's actually, I'll give them kudos if that's it. But
that's what I think that they were trying to do. I really do. Scott Brooks is a poor communicator in post-game settings, so I don't think he necessarily did that. I asked Westbrook, were you anticipating the foul? And he just said he did foul. That's all Westbrook said. He was Brooks did foul. So, I think that's what they were trying to do. I really do. But the difference was I think Westbrook tried to anticipate that foul and get into the shooting motion to draw all 3 free throws. I don't think that part was part of the plan.
Well, ultimately, James Harden burns his former team. There was an article in the local newspaper about it. Even Kevin Durant and Bill Simmons exchanged a couple tweets about the trade revisited. Until the Thunder win a championship with this roster, with this core, and without Harden, it'll always be part of NBA chatter. All right, we appreciate the time. Royce Young, thanks for joining us, man, and I'm sure we'll be checking in with you soon.
Yeah, you bet, guys.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast. I'm Doug Kezirian. Thanks to Amin Elhassan, Royce Young, Tony Cartagena of ESPN 980 in Cleveland, and Ethan Strauss. The next podcast is on Wednesday, which will mark 1 week left in the NBA regular season. Until then, enjoy the games.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the Pod Center page on ESPNradio.com.